All right. So, just like we were talking about with the world map manipulations, about looking at your RTA and adding 36 seconds to it after the time of the motorball split, I do something very similar for Chocobo Ranch here, and I learned this from RJ, is when you enter the Chocobo Ranch, as the screen fades black here, I would recommend you look over at your splits at this time, and whatever your RTA currently is, add 23 seconds to it. And then we've got ourselves another list, because the reason for this is we are going to catch a Chocobo, and we want our Chocobo encounter to come fast and be easy. And be a Chocobo. So this is another world map manipulation, but fear not, this one is extremely easy. In fact, let me put it this way. The world map manipulation coming out of Midgar is pretty tough, and I wouldn't blame anybody for ignoring that for their first runs. However, even if it's your very first run, as long as your in-game time allows it, I should say, as long as you're able to get here in the scope of what's been routed, then you should be doing this manipulation, because it's extremely, extremely easy. So, let's get into it. First of all, we do the Chocobo Ranch. So when you get in here, I just buffer up and left, into up around the corner, and then up and right, and then straight right, and then straight up, right into the barn, and go straight back to Chocobo Billy here. So this is where you need to go, is right to Chocobo Billy, because what we need to do right now is purchase Choco Lure, catch a Chocobo, and then we are going to perform Calm Skip. So when you get to Chocobo Billy, or Choco Billy, at first just mash until he says, do you want to know how to catch a Chocobo? And so basically the way that I'm kind of paying attention is that this text box is pretty big, and then there's a smaller text box, and then there's a bigger text box, and that's the last one. So this text box is a little bit bigger, that one's a little smaller. This one's bigger again, I guess I mean just taller. And so it's after this that you need to make a selection. You need to say the bottom option. So the bottom option is not interested. Even though we do want to catch a Chocobo, we're not interested in learning how. And so at this point you can just mash, because now he offers you the lure. You just mash to buy it. He opens the shop, and you just leave. We're not going to need greens. If you are not manipulating your Chocobo encounter, or you're not going to be, or you're just not confident, you can purchase greens, and we'll go over that as well. But for the absolute optimal strategy, you don't even need to bother buying them. So one more thing I would like to say is, let's say you forgot to say not interested, and you just kept mashing, and you accidentally said, where are they? Fear not, he says just two things, and at this point, don't say Choco Lure, even though that's what we want to buy. Go on, and then you get back to this scene to go down to not interested. So once again, if you accidentally, oh shit, okay, 1, 2, second option, and now you get to say not interested. So there you go. That's the little backup right there. So not interested, then just mash to buy the lure. He opens the shop. Absolutely optimal strats, just leave at this point. But if you would, if you want to add some safety, and you have 100 extra Jill to spare, just go all the way to the bottom and purchase a Geishel Greens, or Geisol, or I don't know how to say it. You can buy one of those. That'll be just fine. So then, straight down to leave, and then what I do here, and this is really important, because remember, with the manipulation that I was talking about, you're on the clock at this point. You need to do all this perfectly in order for that 23 seconds that I mentioned earlier to work out. So I buffer down right here, and then when Cloud is about on this post, I menu. So it's just down right and run, and then I add triangle about right here in order to do a menu. And so this menu now, first of all, we need to equip the Choco Lure Materia. You can put it on Barret or Tifa, it doesn't matter. And because of the materia equipping that we did before, right after Rufus, before Motorball, our top slot of materia was empty, and so it's in the top slot. And so what that means is you go 2 down to materia, and then you can either go 1 down to Barrett, or you can go, 1 up to Tifa. And then either way, you are on their empty slot, and you can just double tap circle to equip Choco Lure and exit that menu. And then move yourself to config and switch it to ATB wait. You don't technically have to do this, but I would highly, highly recommend it, even if you're super good. You can just get screwed if you keep it on active. So I would highly, highly recommend that we go to wait. So once again, when you hit the Chocobo Ranch and the screen fades black, look at your RTA and add 23 seconds to it. And then, as you're making this run around, you can look at your Chocobo manip sheet, and basically what I do is I choose the next 2. You know what I mean? Like, let's say it was, let's say that my RTA was, 130.27. I would look at this list and I would remember, okay, 29 or 33, 29 or 33. And the important thing about this manip, besides the previous one, is that the instructions of how to execute it are always the same. So you can very easily remember multiple and not have to worry about the instructions being different, It's always the same execution. So you just remember 29 or 33 as you come in here and you mash, catch a Chocobo, not interested. Get down to business, 2,000, buy it, thanks, okay. And then exit the shop and run down right, menu, materia, equip Choco Lure, down to config, oops, switch it to ATB wait, and then right there you should be locked and loaded to execute on either one of the manips that you chose. Now that was hypothetical, so we didn't line up with it because I was just saying numbers. But okay, so you've done all that, and let's talk about how to actually execute the manipulation of catching a Chocobo. We'll take the 29 here, which in BizHawk language is 27.5. All you do is you exit the menu holding right and run to run out of frame as quick as possible, and then to load in, when you load into the world map, just be holding right and R the whole time, and that's what you do. Now there's a tiny bit more to it. There's the smallest little more detail to it, but basically the idea is that all of these manips are accounting for your RNG index increasing on every single frame. And so all that means is as long as you are holding right, left, L or R, and you're moving on every frame, then your fractions and your index will stay synced, and you are going to get a Chocobo battle. And that Chocobo battle will be the one that's described here, which most of the time is just 2 Mandragoras, which is pretty optimal. And then the true false is whether or not it's preemptive. And there's a little trick about preemptives that we're gonna have to talk about briefly. But yeah, so if you just hold right and R, that is very good because it starts spinning Cloud around in a circle. And the reason that this is good is because you can't just run right. Because you'll run off the Chocobo tracks, So what the R does is it spins the camera around in a circle, so you're always moving, your index is always increasing, they're staying synced, and Cloud is running in a little circle, so you don't leave the Chocobo tracks, and you will get into that Chocobo battle using this method. Now, what I do is Cloud gets a little dangerously close to the farm here, and he might go back into it by accident. So as long as you're holding right, remember, everything's going to be good. So what I do is I kind of release R for a moment right there to slow the camera pan down, right? I feather R, release it, and repress it with timing to slow the camera panning to make Cloud's circle bring him a little bit lower. So after doing that and holding R once again, you'll see that he's farther away from the farm now. That's why I do that. So it's like a release like right now, and then repress it about right there, and there you go. Now you're just a little bit further away from the farm. And here we go. You get yourself a Chocobo battle with the Manip. So this is a very normal one, where on ATB weight, it's going to be 2 Mandragoras, and you've got yourself a non-preemptive, and those are all of the things that we predicted. Basically, here is kind of what's happening on this fight. The Chocobo is very fast. However, his first turn that he queues up is doing nothing. So as long as you're on ATB weight, and you're relatively quick at getting into your item menu with ATB weight, you don't have to worry about him running away. But if you're on active, you do. So with ATB weight, what we're gonna do is, we got into our first menu as quickly as possible, and we can see our other characters are going to get theirs pretty quickly. You can use left to target this Mandragora, or you can use down to target that one. Just remember which one you did, so you do the other one for the other one, right? So, and that's only for a non-preemptive. We'll talk about preemptive in a second. So yeah, here's your 2 Mandragoras. Grenade one of them, and then right when you confirm this, those ATB bars are going to go again, so you need to get into the next one really quickly. So, grenade, open up the next menu as quick as you can, cool, target the other Mandragora, and then I just hold time with another character. You technically don't have to, but I do. And that's a caught Chocobo. There you go. So let's talk about a couple other things there. But that's catching a Chocobo. So I mentioned earlier that you just hold right and R to spin in a circle, and then I feather R with timing to bring Cloud a little bit further away from the barn. The other thing that you can do is only hold right and not R yet, and then after Cloud runs right away from the barn a little bit, then you start holding R. You can also do that. And that works just as well to make sure that Cloud doesn't accidentally run back into the bar. So either one of those methods of execution, totally fine for catching the Chocobo. And then once again, to do this just a little bit faster, grenade left, grenade down, hold time, get yourself a Chocobo. And now this is assuming that you have enough grenades, which you will if you did elevator manipulation. But if you are a little bit lower on grenades, the Mandragora fight is really good because it only takes 2. Let us talk about if you get birds, and then we'll talk, or well, actually, first let's talk about if you get a preemptive. If you were taking the 13410, this is one that's true, and so it's preemptive. And there's one little quirk to a preemptive fight that we need to discuss. At first, because it's a preemptive, everybody's ATB starts out full, so you don't have to worry about that. And that's very good. That's just like super fast. But here's the quirk. Remember how it was down to one of them and left to the other one? Preemptives aren't like that. Left on a preemptive fight will not target a Mandragora. And if you have the muscle memory down of just grenade left, grenade down, you're going to end up throwing a grenade at the Chocobo. So be very, very careful. If it's a preemptive fight, it's down, or it's down and then left to one of them. So it's grenade down left, and then it's grenade down. So just be very aware of that. Otherwise, you'll grenade a Chocobo and ruin and potentially kill your run. All right, one more thing to talk about is if you get birds. So let's get birds here. And of course, if you like really don't like the birds or something like that, then you can just take those manips off your personal list if you want. But you'll lose time having to wait a little bit longer for the next IGT manip. Okay, so let's say your fight was a Mandragora and a bird. If you have plenty of grenades, as in at least 3, but probably at the very least 4, then you can just go ahead and grenade one, and then grenade the bird twice. And there you go. And yeah, that's worth noting that this particular manipulation sheet only has only has birds if it's going to be preemptive. So yeah, you can just throw 3 grenades and you'll be just fine. If you're worried about your grenades, you can throw 1 at the Mandragora. Because it's preemptive, a big shot will actually do double damage. And so that should take out the bird. Don't do Beat Rush, though, because Beat Rush has a chance to hit the Chocobo. So yeah, big shot should do it if you have one of those. Do make sure, though, that you have a limit break left over for Bottomswell. I would not recommend using a limit break on this fight if you only have big shot and not Beat Rush or something like that, because we're going to want the other limit break, not including Cloud. Cloud, we're not going to use his limit break until after Bottomswell, and if these characters, if they both have limit breaks, then you can use one, but I wouldn't use the only one, and never use Beat Rush for the Chocobo fight. Also, if you don't have a big shot, but you're still low on grenades, you can also, instead of having Cloud throw this grenade, you can have him bolt the bird. So like we switched over to Barret here, so we can grenade the Mandragora, right? And then grenade the bird, bolt the bird. Definitely do not bolt the grass, though. Yes, that is a really good point. So, yeah, if you're going to use magic on this fight instead of a grenade because you're worried about your grenades, do not magic the Mandragora. They have insanely they have insanely high magic defense. And don't throw a grenade with Cloud, because Cloud's the only one with magic right now. So, yeah, good point. Good point in chat. Bio is twice as expensive MP-wise as Bolt is. And the bolt plus a grenade is going to kill. And so, yeah, do the bolt. 1 grenade on the Mandragora, another grenade on the bird, and then you're good. But this is just if there's birds. So there's all the possibilities for you. Most of the time, it's gonna be 2 Mandragoras. You left grenade, down grenade, you're done. But if it's preemptive, it's a down grenade, down left grenade. And if it's a Mandragora and a bird, it's either 3 grenades or grenade the Mandragora, grenade plus magic with Cloud the bird. And that's all of it put together. And now we have a Chocobo. Alright. So I want to talk about one super speed fringe case that you might come up upon. Now, most runs, when you beat Motorball, you're going to have a limit on both Barret and Tifa. And you can only do this if you have a limit on both Barret and Tifa. But that's normal. That's going to be what it is normally. Anyway, if you add the 23 seconds to approximate when you are going to be leaving in order to find the right manip, if you find that just a few seconds before your estimated time, like let's say you came out to like 40 here, 132.40, and so you would probably want to go for the 43, only a couple seconds ahead of that, this 38 is a preemptive with a Mandragora and a bird. And so you can actually make that by not switching to ATB weight, and you can get away with not switching to ATB weight because it's preemptive. And so even though it's active, and that's really scary, you can buffer your first grenade against the Mandragora, and then use limit priority to big shot the bird during the grenade animation, and you can catch a bird on ATB active. You can catch a Chocobo on ATB active pretty easily. So let's show that with this manip here. So normally on console, you would take the 132.38. Since this is BizHawk, I have to go at 132.36 and a half. But here we'll just equip Chocobo Lure. I don't have to switch to ATB weight. That's the point. So we'll go at 136 and a half here. Do the regular movement here. And so you're ready for this preemptive with Mandragoras and a bird, right? On ATB active. So here we go. So what I would do is you can just buffer up in circle to grenade the Mandragora, and then that's going to be with Cloud, because he's always going to come up first, and then just queue up a big shot on the bird during the animation. So unpause here, I'm buffering up in circle, boom, there it is. Queue up that big shot with Barret while you're going. And no problem. Because the big thing about this is that when I usually say to go to ATB wait, it's only for this battle. And then you would switch back to ATB active after the battle. So if you do this, if you catch this in a run, and you are able to catch a Chocobo this way, you saved yourself not only switching to ATB wait in the config menu, but then you also save yourself switching to the config menu in this part now, which we're going to get to in the next episode, where normally on this part you would come up here and you'd have to switch back to ATB active, but you don't have to do that if you did this strategy. So there you go. Fringe case, super speed, if all of the stars align. So just remember, buffer up and circle for a grenade, big shot the bird, super speed. Okay.